All right. Good evening and welcome to the May 29th, 2018 meeting of the Shawnee City Council. I would ask that you please silence your electronic devices. At this time, I am Matt Zimmerman, Council President and Council Member from Ward 1, and I will be chairing this meeting. Mayor Disler is absent. I'll do roll call at this time. Councilman Neighbor.
Present.
Councilman Jenkins is absent. Councilmember Kemling.
Present.
Councilmember Meyer.
Present.
Councilmember Adrian is absent. Councilmember Sandifer.
Present.
And Councilmember Constance. Thank you. So all please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. Thank you. All right. Next, I will explain our procedures for public input. During the meeting, I will offer the opportunity for public input. If you would like to speak to the council at any of those times, please come forward to the microphone. I will ask you to state your name and address for the record, then you may offer your comments. So the members of the audience can hear your comments, I would ask that you speak directly into the microphone. By policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no person may speak more than twice to any one agenda item. After you are finished, please sign the form on the podium to ensure we have an accurate record of your name and address. In addition, while we won't do a roll call vote on every vote, I will state the council members' names who vote in minorities so that our listening audience will have a clear and accurate record of the vote. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the mayor's items, and there are none tonight. Next item is business from the floor. Is there anyone who has comments on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none. The next item on the agenda is public items. Item number 1 is to consider postponing the hearing, which would determine whether the structure at 5019 Neiman Road should be repaired, raised, or demolished. The property was significantly damaged by a fire on December 22nd, 2017. A public hearing is required to determine if the structure should be repaired, raised, or demolished. The structure has been demolished and removed. Additional time is being requested to obtain an engineering report to determine if the foundation is safe for reconstruction. The recommended action is to consider continuing this item to a June 11th, 2018 City Council meeting. Is there any discussion from the council? Anyone from the audience who would like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is items from the Planning Commission meeting of May 21, 2018. Item 1 is to consider the administrative review of the Water One Tower site plans. On March 26, 2018, the governing body approved an agreement with Water One to construct a water tower at the Public Works Service Center. On May 21, 2018, the Planning Commission reviewed the site plans. Review by the governing body is required. Doug Whitaker, Public Works Director, will make a brief presentation. Michelle Worth and Eric Arner from Water One and Jim Winger from Black & Veatch are also present if the council has any questions. Mr. Whitaker.
Good evening, Doug Whitaker, Public Works Director. Just go through this real quick, and then if you do have specific questions, I can ask the Water One representatives to come up. As was previously stated here, the Planning Commission approved this site plan at their May 21st meeting, and This, per the contract, where we approved the water tank back, or you approved the water tank back on March 26th, this only requires an administrative review of the site plan from the governing body. Just as a project summary, it's similar to existing towers located at 199th, which is a 2 million gallon tank, and a 1 million gallon tank, and then Renner Road, which is a 2 million gallon tank. This one will be a 3 million gallon tank. Just again, the height, now that they've gotten their bids back, which they just did and are in their review process right now, the overall height of this tank will be right at about 110 feet, so it'll be on the short side. The diameter, again, it's about 64 feet, 60 to 64 feet there on the tube, and then the bowl is around 115 to 120 feet in diameter. Again, it's a steel bowl, it's cast in place concrete tube, and then all of the piping and valves are inside the actual tube, so none of that is exposed. If you flip this little thing on, they gave me some pictures here of the top left there is the one over in Belton, and that one is about 113 feet tall total, and it's also, I think, close to a 3 million gallon tank. So that kind of shows you about how the height is. It's not going to be sticking way up in the air like you see down at their headquarters, because we're already on a high portion for the area out there. Again, the site, it's in the back portion of the Public Works site, up in behind the main building, and it's in that southwest corner. This project also included reconstruction of the material storage and their street sweeper discharge facilities. And per the bids, they're doing about $250,000 worth of enhancements for us based on the bids that just came in. So on the site. In addition, there's the fiber conduit, which was in the agreement, where we will reimburse that, but they can do that for about half what it would cost us, and it would go from the service center over to Woodland following their water line. It doesn't go all the way down Johnson. It'll cross down there to Parks and kind of go cross lots over to Woodland Road. The construction time frame will begin in July of 18, and then it will go through about May of 2020 as final. It could actually be in service before that, but final grading, final closeout like that is their estimates around May of 2020. The transmission main, we had on here about October 2018 to 19 was the original schedule to get it in this year. If you've been out there, you know they're already working, and that's because of our Johnson Drive road work that's coming up. In fact, I think we'll have bids the end of this week or first part of next for that. So they're trying to get across Johnson and up to the service center, which would affect our construction and be done and out of the way. And then they'll finish the other portions at their schedule based on the tie-in of the tank. And again, this item is for informational purposes only, and it provides the governing body the opportunity to identify any comments they would like to make on the proposed site plan. So with that, we can take any questions and have them come up if we need to.
Any questions from council? Any questions from the public? All right. Doug, thank you. This is for information only, so no action is required tonight. Item 2 is to consider approving the 2019-2024 capital improvement plan. The city reviews and updates the capital improvement plan each year. The council committee requested costs for additional capital projects, and the planning commission requested that sidewalks along 71st Street be added. Staff has prepared cost estimates. Funding is available in future years for possible additions to the CIP. Caitlin Gard, Strategic Initiatives Manager, will make a brief presentation. Welcome, Caitlin.
Hello, thanks for having me. No. Technical difficulties. Please hold. All right, here we go. As you remember, we reviewed the capital improvement program and the new maintenance improvement program in the council committee meeting earlier this month. The Planning Commission did review the capital improvement program last week, and then council has also asked for project summaries and project costs for a number of other projects, along with some unmet needs that staff and the residents have identified for future projects. So we'll go over costs for those tonight. There's a lot of project managers here to help me answer questions as well. So hopefully we can either approve the CIP tonight, but also the recommendation is to approve the CIP tonight, but also if we do approve it tonight, it can be amended once the revised budget has been approved by the governing body, or in future years, we can add additional projects as well. So if you remember, back earlier this month, the governing body brought up 3 additional projects kind of for staff to look into, and those include the 71st and Plum signalization, the sidewalk infill project, and then the Shawnee Mission Parkway and Hilltop pedestrian improvements to get some pedestrian access down there. In front of you on the dais, you have a number of documents that are also included in your packet, but a summary of the maintenance improvement program, a summary of the capital improvement program, and then a summary of all the project sheets that are associated with the projects that we're going to talk about tonight, including funding breakdown and a little bit more information about those specific projects. But as far as the 71st and Plum signalization, that would come out to about $333,000. There are a number of different reasons that a signal is either warranted or not warranted at an intersection. This specific location does meet roadway network signal warrants, but it does not meet accident warrants. So because it met the warrants for one specific criteria, it's going to always meet those warrants, but at this time it does not meet accident warrants. There have not been a number of injury accidents at that location for a number of years. However, this year there have been 2 specific accidents. So if the governing body would like to move forward with this project, it'd be $333,000. The sidewalk infill project, depending on how the council would like to move forward with that, one-time project cost is just over $4.5 million. But if the governing body would like to allocate a portion of the special highway fund, so the fund that does our street maintenance program, the governing body could remove about $300,000 from our dedicated mill and overlay program to put towards this sidewalk infill project over a number of years until the sidewalks were completed. Staff anticipates that about $300,000 from the mill and overlay program or the special highway fund could be allocated towards infilling these sidewalks kind of on an as-needed basis. Staff is going to do a prioritization of those sidewalk locations later this year, very similar to how we did the street improvement program prioritization, pedestrian traffic, location to schools, location to parks, kind of stuff like that. But right now there is not any sort of prioritization for those locations. So if the governing body would like to move forward, we could do it on a one-time basis or could split it up over a number of years. Additionally, these Shawnee Mission Parkway and Hilltop pedestrian improvements, those would be about $110,000, and that would have pedestrian connectivity in that area down there. The Planning Commission did recommend that the governing body approve the CIP with the addition of pedestrian access to Erfurt Park along 71st Street. After staff reviewed kind of options there are 2 different options ranging in price. If the governing body would like to install sidewalk only at that location, that project would definitely need to be evaluated further. Initial estimates are about $421,000. If this project it moves forward, it would be a sidewalk that would have to be removed if the road were to ever be improved. So it would ultimately be like you're installing a sidewalk twice. But with that being said, the improvements to 71st Street are not on any capital improvement plan, nor is there any funding allocated. So it would be up to the governing body to determine what timing that would be. In lieu of just the sidewalk only, the reconstruction of 71st Street would be just over $7.5 million. Like I said, that's not forecasted and it's not in any capital improvement plan. Additionally, other projects that have been on staff's radar or the residents' radar that we've heard about are the improvement of Ballantyne from Johnson to 62nd Street. That is not on the street improvement program. It just didn't score high enough in the categories that that citizen task force came up with. That'd be almost a $2 million project. The improvement of Clare Road from 55th Street to 63rd Street, just over $6 million. The Connect Shawnee Trail that would connect Martindale Road across the railroad tracks over to Shawnee Mission Park would be just under $2 million. And the Shawnee Mission Parkway Corridor Landscaping, Schweitzer to Flum, would be about $175,000. So the governing body has information about all these projects, and staff is more than happy to add those to the capital improvement plan if so directed. There's a little bit of capacity in 2018 revised, about $350,000 for additional projects. That would reduce the reserves from 40% to 39%, but it would be a one-time reduction and not affect the reserves moving forward. There is capacity for a project less than $500,000 in 2019 for a debt service project. And in 2021, there's about $7.5 million of availability. If the governing body chooses to move forward with the $500,000 project in 2019, it may delay that $7.5 million to 2022, just depending on how revenues come in. So like I said, the CIP can be amended if the governing body chooses to approve it tonight and maybe talk about those unmet needs, maybe at next week's committee meeting, or we can absolutely discuss them tonight. It's really however you guys would like to have the conversation. But we would be more than happy to answer questions at this time.
All right, Caitlin, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the council? Lindsay?
Thank you, Caitlin. So regarding the 71st and Flum intersection, have we looked at other possibilities that might help make it a safer intersection but wouldn't be as expensive as a stoplight? For example, maybe a bigger stop sign or flashing lights on the stop sign, something like that?
Kevin Manning, Transportation Manager. There are a variety of options that we could look at. We haven't really taken that step yet because this intersection that actually hasn't had a lot of collisions, except I think the previous 3 years. I don't know if we've actually had any, and we've had 2 this year, so it's kind of spiked up a little bit. But going to a 48-inch stop sign would always be an option, or another option could be adding like flashing LEDs on that. That might be a little bit of a challenge just due to the residential nature of the area, since that would be going 24/7 basically. And I will say that there have been discussions in the past about signalizing this, and there was a neighborhood meeting, and the residents on all 4 corners expressed concern about having basically a signal like running outside their window. So that's something we would have to consider before we put anything in.
Would a bigger stop sign help? And that's simple.
Sure. I mean, that's
something like that might.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any problem putting that in.
Because I agree, the flashing lights with houses right there would be a problem possibly.
Yeah, that would probably be less than ideal. It's we prefer to use those more on maybe arterials where they're not going to be necessarily in someone's front window all the time. But we can certainly look at the possibility of putting that 48-inch in.
Yeah.
Councilman Sandifer?
On that issue, 2 of the neighbors that were at that meeting that were complaining about all the lights aren't there anymore.
Okay.
Whether there's traffic lights or some type of LEDs or something around them just to light them up, that's going to be lights either way. I mean, that'll be on all the time.
Sure.
I would like to look into some type of a lighting around the signs, if we could do that. And just see, and if you have to have a neighborhood meeting and discuss it with them. I know some of the neighbors around there have complained about the people running those signs. And if it's versus actual street lights, they would probably give in more to some type of a lighting around the signs to make it a safer intersection. So I would like to see if we can't go ahead and at least look into it.
Okay. Yeah, we'd be
and
more
have a
happy to
meeting.
do that. I will add one thing too, just like with Caitlin mentioned signal warrants, there's also 4-way stop warrants essentially, basically meaning that before you install a 4-way stop, there's supposed to be a certain amount of traffic on each approach. So that might be something else that we take a look here and see, is there enough traffic to really warrant that 4-way stop, and just have those discussions to see if it makes sense. I will say, obviously, once you have stop signs in place, people don't generally like to remove them because there is a perception of safety. But the
Right.
reason there are those warrants, and the reason there are signal warrants, is that absent that side street traffic, you do have more people run those stop signs. And so that's kind of a consequence. If we just go out and install four-way stops all over the city, some people are going to slow down and stop, but you're also going to have a lot more people running those stop signs. So that's
Right.
something else I'd probably want to take a look at, in addition to everything else at the intersection.
Okay.
Councilmember Gamelin.
Yeah, on that same topic, I got a call just before this meeting about the signalization here from a resident that wasn't too fond of the idea. So I would also like to at least maybe look at whether a larger stop sign would be effective, or maybe a simpler solution, or maybe even a less expensive solution.
Yeah, for sure, a stop sign will be much, much cheaper than a signal. Don't have to worry about that.
Councilmember
Thank
Meyer?
you. On a different topic, if we are good on that one, thank you. Just a couple comments. The sidewalk at 71st Street, I know we've been talking about for a couple of years. I think it would be great to have the ability to do that if we have some capacity. We built Erfurt Park a few years ago and didn't really build any access on foot to get to Erfurt Park. So I think it should be a good policy going forward that if we're building new park space, that we build some accessibility so folks in the neighborhood can walk over to them. So I would be in favor of continuing to look at that. And also just, we've been talking about Clare Road for a long time. I hear about it a lot. I'm sure Justin does as well. Clare Road is getting into a pretty bad place, and the amount of traffic that goes down there and just the state of the condition of the road overall with the growth around it and all sorts of the more houses going out there. I think, again, we're just seeing increasing need and stress put on Clare Road. And I really think that it's something that we need to take seriously and include on the CIP.
Jim is first.
Councilmember Neighbor.
I just, excuse me, echo with what Stephanie said, because the sidewalks on 71st Street, if it doesn't show up on any of the CIPs, I'm for that, because we got to get access in there somewhere. I remember the little girl came several months ago and says, I can't get there because there's no sidewalks. I can't ride my bicycle on the street. And then the other part, Clare Road, I think that obviously it's in the west part of the city, but I certainly recognize, and I'm sure the people in the eastern part of the city will understand that Clare Road is going to be very, very important for development out there going forward, much like the Monticello projects are. And we look at those two projects, we're talking about an awful lot of money in our budget coming up in 2022 and things there. And so those are going to be some decisions we're going to have to make, and probably some other things are going to have to move further back.
On the dollar issue that we're going to have here, if we spend any money right now, I know it's going to hurt us in 2021 and 2022. Where are we at that we could actually spend? I saw the number of $7.5 million. Now, we don't have anything in the budget for Monticello, and we have to do there's no money in the budget for Monticello, is there?
Not in the approved 2019 budget.
Right.
no.
Okay.
It is on the CIP. And
Well,
we
it
have
is on the CIP.
And we have applied for both CARS,
Right.
it's scheduled for CARS funding, and then we've applied for also federal funding.
Right. Now, if that comes through, we're going to need that $7.5 million, won't we? Towards
That's an addition. There's an additional $7.5 million capacity.
over and above Monticello?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, everything that's in the CIP that you have in front of you is programmed and funded.
Okay. All right. So that's back. Thank you.
Yes, Lindsay.
I'd like to express support for the sidewalks, and I like how you mentioned prioritizing those if we did decide to go forward with that, because when you look at the map, it really impacts lots of neighborhoods throughout our city, and I think would also benefit our walkability and bikeability, and it's something that residents bring up a lot in different parts of the city, so I'd like to see us continue to explore that.
They are not. No, the sidewalk infill project that's being proposed is for non-ditch section streets, so streets that already have curb and gutter, and 71st Street unfortunately is not one of those.
Any other questions from council? Yes, Stephanie?
Would there be possibly a way that we could look at doing both? So if we look at the 71st Street as maybe the first year, and then in following years, maybe we look at the $300,000 allotment to take care of sidewalks everywhere else. That way we're addressing the need at the park, which is a bit more immediate, I would say, and then covering everyone else.
Any other questions from council? Comments? Any questions from the public? All right. The recommended action is to consider approving the 2019 to 2024 capital improvement plan as currently written.
That's currently
Caitlin, as I
written.
understand it, we'll have the option, even if we approve it, we'll have the option to amend it
Absolutely.
in following sessions. So based on that, I'll accept a motion to approve as it's currently written.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Can I ask a point of clarification first?
Sure.
Sorry. It does sound like we have a little bit of consensus on maybe some items. I don't know if it's worth maybe amending it a little bit at this point, if there's something we can agree on, rather than kind of waiting further down, just throwing it out there before we too far ahead.
Any comments on that?
Well, they
From
need
council?
they need to research a
And
little
maybe
bit
that's
of
the
it
case.
before we do that.
Well, I think they were bringing forward some of those costs so we could make those decisions.
If the intent would be to add sidewalk only on 71st Street, not to improve the entire street in the first year, and then subsequent years, $300,000 allocated to sidewalk infill based on staff's prioritization.
Right.
And we have the capacity to do that
There
right
seems
now.
to be capacity, and we can absolutely confirm that and then bring it back for a revision, or we can just hold until staff reviews that, maybe next council.
I would include that in Clare Road as well, just to get all my,
What do you think, Vic?
So there's capacity. There's capacity if you want to do that.
If we want to approve it tonight,
Sidewalks
Sidewalk
only.
for,
yeah.
I'll amend my motion to approve those tonight.
okay, so a motion has been made to approve the capital improvement plan as written, but to include the 71st Street sidewalk
Yes, and the 300,000 a year.
and the 300,000 a year, sidewalk
Yeah,
sidewalk
For the
improvement,
sidewalks.
correct.
71st Street being added in 2019,
Yes.
correct? And then starting in 2020 with the $300,000.
I believe that's correct.
To clarify Stephanie's clarification, if we want to come back, you're saying that we can, if there's something else that we look
Yes.
at.
Yeah, we can amend this later on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion with amendments from Mr. Sandiford. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, a motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Caitlin. Next item on the agenda is items from the council committee meeting of May 8th, 2018, chaired by Councilmember Zimmerman. Item 1 is to consider revisions to policy statement number 7 of PS 7, conduct of public meetings related to remote participation for city council and council committee meetings. The council committee recommended 7-0 that the governing body approve revisions to PS 7 to allow members of the governing body to participate remotely in city meetings. The mayor has offered comments on the proposed policy for consideration, which were included in the packet memo. The recommended action is to consider approving revisions to PS 7. The mayor has some items she wanted us to consider related to this policy. I'm going to briefly read through those right now. Item 1, the policy should be viewed as a special exception for extreme unplanned circumstances, not for convenience. There is an expectation of elected officials to attend the meetings of the seat they are representing. Item 2, limit the reasons we allow council members to participate remotely to just personal injury, illness, disability, or emergencies. Item 3 is to limit, the limit should be a maximum of 2 meetings total in 1 year, not 2 council, plus 2 committee, plus an unlimited special call. Item 4, if a council member needs to participate remotely more than twice per year, the governing body can vote to allow it. Item 5, the council members' 2 meetings would need to be approved by the council after roll call before the meeting begins. 6, with extreme caution and special circumstance, allow a council member who has an extreme situation to participate in an executive session with safeguards in place if approved by the majority of the council. Next, require a council member who is participating remotely to use a program like Google Hangouts so that the council member can be seen and heard by the mayor or the chair and can be recognized when they want to speak. Next item, limit the number of council members who can be absent from a meeting to 1. Otherwise, it could potentially become burdensome to the chair and disruptive to the meeting to manage multiple remote council members. And then this last comment is that we consider more controversial issues in the public perception of allowing council member to participate remotely. All of that noted, any discussion from the council? I would make an observation on my own behalf. I think the idea of remote meetings is a good idea. That it be done only in the issue of an emergency or a personal injury, I don't think makes much sense to me. If it's an emergency, I don't think I'd be of the mind to call into a council meeting. Or if I were gravely ill, I'd prefer to not participate. Yeah, thank you. And just as an aside, the issue here is we have 6 council members that have full-time jobs. A lot of us travel, find ourselves on the road. It seems more convenient that be the reason that we'd be calling in. My only other comment is with regards to Google Hangouts as the medium for calling in. That's a pretty nifty app. However, Steve, my conversation with you prior to the meeting, the phone bridge in here gives us much more of a public forum for people to call in. Yeah.
Or medical issues for a relative also, like your wife or husband.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, Councilman Neighbor.
I go along with you. I think that, we talked about this quite a bit as a committee, and we approved it out 7-0. Now, if we approve it now, we've got this, then we find out how it works, and we can always come back and revisit it with some of these other things. But, to me, it's one thing, either we approve it here or we table it and go back, put it back to committee and discuss all of these other items. So.
Yeah, Councilmember Sandifer.
If you're remotely calling in, would that exclude you from an executive session if you needed to be there? If you're calling in for the meeting? You wouldn't have to have a separate ruling for that. If you're there for the meeting, is that able to be changed and put back into executive session?
Currently, the way the policy is drafted, you would not be able to participate in an executive session remotely. But one of Mayor Dissler's suggestions is to allow that to occur by a vote of the council.
I would think that would need to be also, because if you're calling in for an important meeting that you have an executive session on, you may need to be in that also.
All right. Lindsay?
I was just going to say, to simplify it, can we just say 2 meetings of any kind, and that's the number, and then we don't have to figure out if Stephanie's reason is important or Mickey's is not. We can just say you get 2, use them wisely, and I trust everyone here as a professional is not going to abuse that.
Keep it simple.
Just keep it simple, and also regarding the only allowing one person to be absent at a time, in my mind, as long as we have a quorum, that should be fine. We don't necessarily need to add that stipulation.
Any other comments from council? Yeah, Stephanie?
I agree with all those comments. I think we've all been elected and we have a responsibility to our constituents. So for whatever reason we decide to miss a meeting, if that's work or whatever, it's kind of on our own. I do like the idea, and I don't know, I missed the discussion on this initially, of including the special call meetings and that. I don't know if y'all had that conversation, but that makes sense to me because those would probably be ones you would be more apt to want to call in for.
So if I'm making notes here, I think what I'm understanding is that if we approve it as written with the notation that we limit it to a maximum of 2 meetings per person per year. That being the only stipulation. Stephen, how's that written right now in the?
Right now, if you can call in to 2 special calls, so you could call into 2 city council meetings, 2 council committee meetings, and 2 special call meetings. Now, however, if you were calling in to a special call meeting, such as the one that we had last week, where you go right into an executive session, then the way the policy is currently written is that you could call in and vote to go into executive session, but then you couldn't participate in the executive session. Yeah. So. And under the mayor's suggested comment, it would require a vote of council to allow you to participate in executive session. Yes.
It's on page 18 of. I'm sorry, it's on page 18 of the packet, and as it is written now, there's no permitted attendance at an executive session. Item 5 under subparagraph B states remote participants may not participate in executive sessions, and if I understand the consensus is you would like to change that to without majority vote of the council president voting. It's your policy. We'll write it however you want us to write it. So the changes would be to B. So that Stephen and I know how to write this correctly. It would be to B5 on page 22. I'm sorry, Stephen, what page is that?
Page 8 of
9.
B7.
B5. It's
But you
currently
just would
written.
remove remote participants may participate in executive session, so you just remove not.
You want that to be buy-in with a majority vote of the council, is that correct? Not correct. Okay. Just remove not, and then the other item was
Okay.
that's what I was just going to ask, and then there was discussion on page 8 of 9 of the policy, B1. Is unreasonably difficult and put a period after B1. Is that what the consensus the council is?
Yeah. These reasons geographic distance obviously makes sense, but from my perspective, to say that you can only call in when you've got an emergency, or you're injured or you're sick, I don't think that's what we don't want somebody weighing in with decision-making when they're distracted with an emergency or an illness or whatever. So just strike, as you pointed out, just put it unreasonably difficult, period.
So Stephen has the text. Can you go ahead and put a strike through that?
No.
With this language that we have up on the screen would go away, and then the language in now I can find it.
It's B5
would be changed from remote participants may not to remote participants may participate in executive sessions.
And then B2 would change.
Yeah. So you want 2 meetings per year per person. So we'll change B2. That's what the consensus is to say members may remotely participate in a maximum of 2 meetings per year.
Correct.
Let's be clear on the special call portion of it, because the special call provision has no limit as it's written now.
So how do you all feel
I see what you're
about
saying.
the
So that you bring up a good point. If we can limit it to 2 council meetings, with the exception if it's a special call meeting, because those are scheduled the last minute and typically inconvenient, we just leave that as a no limit.
Okay.
Stephen, you getting all that?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see if I can recite this. All right. Well, wait, before we go any further, are there any comments from public? Yes, Mr. Ehrlichman, please step forward. State your name, address.
Ray Ehrlichman, 7510 Garnett Street. Personally, I don't think that this is a good idea. Number one, I cannot remember when was the last time that this council or a council committee did not have a quorum. And I know, Mr. Powell, I hate to put you on the spot, but I don't know. Do you remember how long it's been since we have had to cancel a meeting because of lack of a quorum? I mean, it's been a long time. So that's negligible. Comment I believe that you made, if I heard you correctly, Mr. Zimmerman, was, if you're out because of severe illness, an injury, or an emergency, are you really going to want to call in anyway? Been banged up in a car accident, you're attending a funeral, something like that. You're not in the mood to be giving your attention to a call in for the council. Your mind's somewhere else. Now, there's a point there, and I don't have my glasses on. I think it says geographical distance. Now, that brings up one of the 2 key points that I wanted to talk about in this discussion. I'm going to refer to it, and I think there might only be 2 or 3 people in the room who will remember it. So some of you are going to get a history lesson. It's called the Cheryl Scott debacle. That's when we had a council member in Ward 1 by the name of Cheryl Scott. I'm not going to go into total detail because I would be up here for an hour. But she was relocating to Arizona. And she didn't want to resign her seat until she felt she was ready to resign her seat, which turned out to be after an election. So there was an appointment to the council as opposed to an election to the council. And Mr. Neighbor, that was how you first got on the council, was filling the spot vacated by Ms. Scott. There was also a lot of questions about whether or not she actually was still residing in Shawnee, because there was a lot of questions about the dates of when her home here sold and the purchase of the home there, and was she actually staying with friends when she was here. And she showed up at a couple of council meetings, and a couple of them she didn't show up, and when she showed up, boy, she had a heck of a suntan. It was really pretty. You can find more information about this on my blog. And I know a lot of you don't like my blog, but if you go back there and look it up, you'll also find links to contemporaneous, I hope I pronounced that right, contemporaneous articles in the Shawnee Dispatch with interviews that they conducted with certain city officials at the time. So here's a case where geographical distance, and also in this case, a questionable residency. Not for me. The last item is, even with something like, what's that? I have never even heard that one, that Google Room thing.
Oh, yeah.
Google Hangout, okay. Yeah. Or Skype or any of those. What's to prevent the remote person from not getting feedback or something else from somebody who's not on the council? Somebody sitting across the room from them. At least when you guys are up here, we can see what you're doing. You don't know what's going on when that person is remote. Now, if it's visual, like, is that Google Hangout? Is that visual? Okay, so it's like Skype. Okay, thank you. you can only see one side. You can see them, but you don't know what's on the other side of that camera. Impossible. I don't like that idea either. Now, in the package, it appears that not all the cities in Johnson County have gone along with remote. And I think that the cities that have not gone along with it are on the right step, right direction. I think you're going to open up a can of worms with remote access. That's my opinion. Everybody's got opinions, and we know what opinions are like, so we won't go into that. But I think you'd be making a mistake by going with this remote access. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ray. Any other questions? Mr. Neighbor.
Yeah, I'm going to just sort of, 1914, 1914, that was a long time ago. 2014, and just the point about this, and I would make the point that I feel like everybody sitting up here at this dais takes a responsibility, much like Stephanie suggested, takes it very, very seriously. And, you know, I think this might be an opportunity for somehow to make it work and still participate when you have some tough circumstances. I know, and in my personal thing, in 2014, we were going to vote on a budget. And it was going to be a very interesting vote. I got on an airplane in Amsterdam and left my wife in the hospital, make sure I was here for that vote. She got home a week later. So what I'm saying is that I take this very seriously. I would not look at this to give me an out to do something to extend my vacation, because I take this very seriously. And I think I'm speaking for everyone else here. I think they would too. And again, like many of the things in PS7, it is there to use if in fact you need it, and it gives us guidelines. But it's just another part in the toolbox, again, to make sure that if we got extenuating circumstances, we can participate.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neighbor. Any other comments from council? All right, let's see if I can get this properly stated. The motion would be to accept the proposal with the following corrections or amendments. Item B1 would be basically to strike all references to injury, illness, emergencies, and simply put a period at the end of difficult. And then we would amend B5, remote participant, to remote participants may participate in executive sessions. Let's see. I think that was it. B2. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So council members may remotely participate in a maximum of 2 council meetings each calendar year, but we are going to keep no limit on special call meetings. Okay, everybody got that?
2 meetings regardless of type, excluding executive sessions. Because otherwise you would want to, if you do want it that, you would change it to council members may remotely participate in a maximum of 2 meetings each calendar year. Yeah. Separate.
So we're going to include the executive session as one that they've already attended.
We're doing that in B5 where you can.
Okay.
It's just an item. It's not necessarily separate.
Okay. Right. Got that?
So do we see council meetings and council committee as separate or what?
Council meetings are the same, whether it's a committee meeting or a general session. You're going to give 2, and then unlimited special call meetings. No references to injury, illness, emergencies, and executive sessions are inclusive. All right. I think we got that. I will accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second? Anybody? All right, a motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right. Next item on the agenda, staff items. To consider an excise tax abatement agreement with Complete Investments LLC for Hillcrest Farms 10th plat. Pursuant to policy, Complete Investments LLC has formally requested to be considered for the conditional abatement of the excise tax on 4.5 acres of land generally located at 47th Street of Lake Crest for the purpose of developing an 18-lot, single-family residential subdivision. The recommended action is to consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement. Any discussion from council? Anyone from the audience who would like to speak to this item? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on the item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 2, to consider contract number 2018-0055, a franchise agreement with Verizon, and ordinance number 3224, a contract franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications system. Verizon Wireless LLC is proposing to install wireless telecommunication equipment on city-owned streetlights. An ordinance and franchise agreements are required. There are 2 recommended actions. The first is to consider passing ordinance number 3224, granting Verizon Wireless LLC a franchise allowing them to operate telecommunication systems within the city. Any discussion from council? Any comments from the audience? I'll accept a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Second action is consider approving and authorizing the mayor to sign the franchise agreement. Is there any discussion from the council? Any comments from the audience? I'll accept a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on the item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 3 is to consider passing ordinance number 3225, granting telecommunications franchise to MCI Metro. MCI Metro intends to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications system within the city. The initial term is for 5 years, and the city will receive 5% of the gross receipts. An ordinance is required. Recommended action is to consider passing ordinance number 3225, granting a telecommunication franchise to MCI Metro. Any discussion from the council? Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, I will accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on the item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items. Item 1 is to ratify the semi-monthly claims for May 29, 2018 in the amount of $1,439,202.96. Any discussion from council? From audience? Seeing none, I will accept a motion. Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Lastly, miscellaneous items. Anyone in the council have an item they would like to discuss? It's Mr. Sandifer.
We have Old Shawnee Days, and the kickoff is Thursday morning at breakfast, if anybody's available. And we have a fabulous weekend in store. Weather's going to be perfect. So everybody come have a good time. And thank you for the staff and everybody that just are miracle workers to help us put this thing together. Thank you.
Any other comments from staff? Nikki, you forgot to mention the Bloody Mary party tomorrow. So in the spirit of Old Shawnee Days, tomorrow evening is the Bloody Mary fundraising party for our own Shawnee Town. I'm a good, close personal friend of the bartender. I hope you will join us. I have a couple other items I just want to mention. Vicki, you sent out some emails earlier in the week. I just wanted to recognize that the Kansas City Metro chapter of the American Public Works Association has recognized our stormwater manager, Cynthia Moeller-Krass, in the city of Shawnee. And we received the Public Works Project of the Year Award for the disaster emergency construction of last year's stormwater improvements. So very, very impressive and yeah. And then we also got a letter from a constituent who has been wrestling with AT&T for quite some time with some issues in their yard. AT&T was not having anything to do with assisting our citizen. He put in a citizen request, and Tom was on it, Tom Dyke, and cracked the whip on AT&T. Lo and behold, the lines got buried, and we have a happy citizen. So that's good work. I think the city staff gets a lot of criticism and not enough praise for the work they do. So any other items? I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.